Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guest today is Peter Romness. He is the cybersecurity principal for CISO advisors at Cisco Systems. Peter, good to have you with us.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here with you, Tom.
And I wanted to ask you about cloud adoption. This is an ongoing, really, saga for the federal government and for the providers that it works with. And, the early idea of cloud was, well, it's secure because the cloud company, secures what's assets that you have, data and applications in their cloud. But in many ways, this increased reliance on cloud is a challenge for detection and of knowing what's going on throughout all of your assets. And maybe discuss that with us, how you can increase visibility, but also detection and getting after cyber threats that might be in the cloud that are not the cloud provider's responsibility.
The evolution of cloud in government has been really interesting to watch. At first there was a lot of reluctance to go to the cloud at all. And then in order to get over that reluctance, that you started hearing this term cloud first, meaning that all agencies should look to the cloud first for any new project. And then they figured out, well, that might not be the best thing. And they went to cloud smart. So, use your brain and pick cloud when it makes sense. And so, kind of the evolution has been interesting, but in general, most people are seeing the advantages of going to the cloud, the ability to spin things up quicker, the ability to have someone manage your data who does it for a living, and, that has this economy of scale in the cloud. So, there are many places where having cloud is an advantage. There are some places that I think we've all found out that maybe aren't such an advantage. And oftentimes cloud is not as cost effective as it first appears. And so a lot of organizations are starting to pull back some applications because just for better cost control and better control of their own data. But there's what we're seeing is a mix of cloud and on-premise cloud, so private cloud. So even though organizations may not have all their assets in a public cloud, they're managing their data centers as if they were cloud data centers to get some of those advantages. So, then it becomes a question of, okay, so I'm in charge of security for my data. And my data is no longer just in one place in my data center. It may be in my data center and my cloud-based data center, or it may be in a data center of one of the major cloud providers. And how do I manage that? And so, the whole idea is how much visibility can you give to the people that have to manage to all of their data, no matter where it is. And so, industry has fought very hard to give the same visibility to customers, no matter where their data is. And I know at Cisco, we've worked really hard so that it's almost transparent as to where your data is. You have many of the same capabilities of managing it and protecting it, whether it's in your data center or it's in one of the major cloud provider data centers. And we've also worked really hard to make it so that the management of all these tools is congruous amongst the whole environment. You don't have to switch from user interface to user interface to manage it. It's all in one place for you. So we've made a lot of progress doing that, and it really does help the defender protect the data.
But fundamentally, if you have something insecure and you rehost it in the cloud, that doesn't make it secure.
No, it's there's an early quote with cloud is your data, my data center, is what they used to say. And so it's all a matter of I need to protect my data. I need to make sure that as a cloud provider, you're doing your part to protect my data. And so that comes into how are you contracting for this capability? It's where things like FedRAMP came from, so that agencies can be sure or have a higher level of assurance that the cloud provider they're working with is following the appropriate measures to make sure their data is safe also.
And the concept of security service edge has emerged.
Yeah,
SSE. What exactly is it, and how does it help you with cloud security? Let's define it first and then tell us how it applies in
yeah.
the
So
hybrid environment.
security service edge kind of takes the idea of where does my control start and where does it end? And the place that I see it the most is on the endpoint, and being able to protect our users as the data goes in and out, and to protect our data as it goes in and out of their endpoint. So making sure that the appropriate measures are in place based upon how important that data is. So as an example, I want to be able to have a secure channel to all of my users so I can see what's going on in their machine and control it. And as part of that control, I want to be able to say, well, I want to not only protect it, but I also want to give a good user experience. So for some applications, I may say, okay, I've made a risk-based decision, and for going to, say, a web, doing a web search or going to some web applications, as long as I'm protecting the data going across, I will let the user go straight to that application from his or her device. And for some, say it's an application that I have on site in my data center, I may want to make sure that there's a secure channel that they're going through. Think about it as the old-fashioned VPN, but kind of a VPN on steroids nowadays. And the ability to make sure that that communication from end to end is secure. And then for some, other applications, I may want to say, okay, you have to use multi-factor authentication and something else to get into it, so I can granularly control access to every bit of data and application that a user would go to and protect it along the way. And that's kind of what this whole secure service edge is all about.
And would you say secure service edge is it a set of products? Is it a state of being that you want by
It's
applying
kind of,
those
yeah,
technologies?
you need a set of products to get to it, but it's kind of a state of being. It's a way of looking at how do you protect. Yeah.
And how do you go about getting to it then? Into that secure edge?
Yeah, so it's a matter of putting the different tools in place. Oftentimes you already have the tools, but just for control of a secure service edge, at Cisco we use our security connector, which used to be called, it's an evolution of our VPN product called AnyConnect. And that secure connection allows for all of the control. And so, we've kind of upgraded it to be able to do that. And by having that secure connection to every endpoint, we can see what's going on in that endpoint, and then control it, and put it through the appropriate security procedures if it's needed. So, just always being able to monitor, being able to see what's in your environment and be able to react to it. And having this secure connection is what's important for that.
And does this capability live on the device as some sort of an agent, or is it something that exists at the host?
Yeah, there's a very small agent on the device, but really that agent is to set up a connection between a secure connection between the people who are monitoring and the device. Yeah.
Right, so that therefore the control stays inside with someone who can monitor what's
Yes.
going on. And I
Yes.
guess the implication there too is that if someone tries to connect with a device without that agent, that's an automatic disqualification before you get any further.
Well, yeah, I mean, people will be, I mean, if you think about it, someone's got a device, they're getting email, they're going to different websites and things. And that's kind of normal behavior. Where the secure connection comes in is the ability to see that normal behavior and determine if there's something irregular or something that's malware before it does any damage.
Yeah, so there's a pretty good technology stack in there that's allowing all of this to happen, it sounds like.
Well, yes, yes. And the technology stack isn't always necessarily there, right? So it could be a small, and in fact, we use a very small agent on the device that actually monitors and looks at the flow of files coming and going on the device, and it uses the hash of those files to know if it's seen it before and if it's good or bad. So it's not a huge file on the device that's comparing. It's a hash that's being sent back and forth to the cloud. Is this hash good? Is that hash good? And so it can be a very small package on the end user device, but have the advantages of the cloud behind it.
I'm curious as to how you might integrate that into, say, your identity management and access control system, which would also be something
Well,
that,
yeah, and of course, identity management and access control is all part of making sure that you have the right, the right people and the right devices getting to the right assets, right? And so, if there's if you determine there's a malware that's come into a machine and you're dealing with it, that has effect on your identity and access policies. And a decision you made to let someone get to specific assets previously may change, at least temporarily, until you deal with the problem. So the ability to not only have good access and control policies, but to have them flexible enough to react to what's going on in the world is very critical.
and just to be clear, then you can obtain this secure service edge capability as kind of a turnkey product or turnkey set of products.
It would be it would be a set of products, and it's mostly turnkey. Oftentimes, there's customization based upon the preferences of the organization and the
Right.
risk tolerances.
But it's device based and it works in conjunction with your ID based security controls.
Yeah, and that's another thing that we've worked really hard on, is to make all that stuff work together. So depending on which tools you need, which tools make most appropriate, we're working to integrate them and make them all work together, and not just with tools from our company. We work with all the major providers, and many of almost all of our competitors even we work with.
Yes, because the cybersecurity landscape, you might say, or the forest, whatever it is becoming denser and more complicated because of hybrid cloud and because of the need for, tighter access controls and user controls. And so managing that complexity seems to be like the biggest challenge in cybersecurity, because if you don't, then you're going to miss something.
It has become the #1 challenge that I talk to people about. Is, and I've actually had security leaders tell me that they would go for an 80% solution if it all worked together versus the perfect solution, because they feel that there's more risk in having incongruent systems than there is in one or having a few things slip through. Now, my goal is to have it a congruent system with the best systems as part of it, all the tools being the best and working well. But and of course we all have our own biases of what the best is, but no two organizations are the same. And so we're working with tools from all of the different major security vendors all the time, and we're integrating them. And we're getting to a point where with a few clicks, you can identify something across your whole environment and react to it very quickly. So the ability to help defenders act quickly and respond and recover from things is really getting accelerated using this ability to make all the tools work together.
Yeah, this orchestration has to happen as threats come in and as conditions
Yeah.
alert the various components of the system to something they have to pay attention to.
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking about threats from all around the world. You know, we're at a point where if we see a threat at, say, a car factory in Germany, within minutes, all of our tools around the world at all of our customers are able to react to that and change their posture based upon the new threat.
And so what is the relationship between, say, you as a service provider, really, as much as a product provider in this particular instance, and your security operations center, your network operations center, because the way agencies are set up is not all that clear cut or simple either sometimes.
Yeah, well, Cisco has a threat intelligence organization called Talos. It's one of, if not the largest private threat intelligence organization in the world. And our customers opt in when they use a Cisco solution, they opt in to share um, uh, threat intelligence or share the telemetry that their machines are, that their solutions are collecting. And all of that telemetry is sent to our Talos organization. And they use a lot of different tools and also just plain pure smarts of the people that are there to determine if it's a new threat, to look for trends in threats, and then to create the response mechanisms that all of the different security devices have and automatically send those out to all of the customers that have opted in. Now, most of our customers opt in, so we have a huge database. And some customers, you know, some of the more secure customers don't want us automatically feeding information into their environment. So they've put different ways in place of making sure that information is safe. You probably heard about guards as a device, that type of thing. But almost all of our customers, even the most secure ones, do eventually get that information feed. And most of them share that information back with us. So it's a very big and intricate network that's protecting all of our customers. Kind of a interesting thing about that is, you know, we talk about sharing threat intelligence. And oftentimes our users or our defenders get too much threat intelligence. So when you get too much, it's the opposite problem of having not enough. And so the ability to have the machines just get these feeds and automatically present options or automatically implement the changes is very helpful to the defenders.
Yeah, a lot of data generated by all of these
Right.
tools working, even if they are in orchestration. And just a final question, when someone enrolls, say a new employee or someone changing, and there's often this automated self-service way of provisioning their gear,
Yeah.
their portable computer or their mobile device. Does this download with that? Can that get into that stream of
You know, that's
self-service?
the ability for someone to self-enroll and things like that. That is set up using the preferences of the organization and how they self-enroll. And so that enrollment becomes an official user of, you know, you get into the directory of the organization, and depending on what your job is and the risk structure of your organization, you're given access to certain things. And so then once all of that enrollment is done, then that user is an authorized user and they can go to the appropriate places. All of this threat information becomes important when odd things start to happen, you know, when there's attacks on the thing. And that threat information is then used to modify the access decisions. So if it's a user, say, on a Linux device, and all of a sudden there's a new Linux threat out there, well, you'd want to know it and modify the access of all your Linux machines. So that's where the identity and the posture of the user come in making these decisions.
Right. So the managed endpoint, if you will, becomes a role player in the whole cybersecurity ongoing
Yes, yes.
posture.
So the posture, the person at the endpoint, the posture of the endpoint, the type of endpoint, all of that comes into making your decisions.
All right. Well, we thank you for that insight into this whole SSE question. Peter Romness is the cybersecurity principal for CISO advisors at Cisco System. Great having you with us.
Thank you.
And I'm Federal Drive host Tom Temin. You're watching Federal News Network. Let's go back to the studio now for more on the industry exchange cyber.